Hi, and welcome back to my channel. In this video, you have my July wrap-up. I have a lot of books sitting over here, not as many as in June. I don't actually remember if I did in my June wrap-up, I went through every book because that was a lot of books. But I think that I did because I don't remember doing a different format. Thankfully though, in July, I read just 31. So first off, speaking of that number, I'm going to go over my statistics. I'm going to go over the different lists of goals that I have been working towards, and then I'm going to go over them briefly by rating. As I just mentioned, I read 31 books, so basically a book a day, which I think I did pretty well with that. And I actually slowed way down from June. Most people though would look at the number that I read and go, that's a lot of books. So I constantly have to acknowledge that. As far as pages go, I read about 12,000 pages, and that number combines audiobook listening time as well as physical reading time. And speaking of audiobook listening, I listen to approximately 100 hours. Going forward, when I have work through each day, well, most of the days, obviously not the weekends, I don't think I'll be able to keep up that number. Who knows? It's already a few days into August and I've already read a lot of books, including mostly audiobooks, so we shall see what that number ends up being. When it comes to genre, fantasy is once again back on top, but not by a huge margin. Out of the 31 books, 13 of them were fantasy, and then the rest of them were spread out between a number of different genres. We had nonfiction, contemporary, historical, mystery. So I think that was a pretty good, fairly even split. Fantasy is my favorite. So if I'm reading books that I like and books that I own in my TBR, a lot of them are going to be fantasy. As far as the format in which I read them, as I mentioned, the overwhelming majority is audiobooks. I don't remember the exact number. The image will be here on the screen, about 60-some%. I've discovered that my brain works best when I'm able to do like two things, listening to the audiobook, but also doing something with my hands like cross stitch or crochet, or whether I'm running, things like that. When it comes to owned TBR, I brought in 20 books in July. Part of that was birthday month because, July is my birthday month. I did also purchase a few, but out of all the books that I read, 29 of them were from my own TBR. I did a fairly good job with that. So I have a net negative of 9 books. Before I get into my overall rating, I'm going to go through the different categories and lists that I'm working through this year and show you the books that fit these different categories. First off, we have my series to start. I'm actually setting myself up fairly well so that in November and December, probably even October, I won't have any series to start, which works for my Goodreads Choice Awards project that I'll start around that time. I actually started 2 of those 10 series this month. I started the Wayward Children series with Every Heart a Doorway, the Broken Earth trilogy with the 5th season. This, if I were to choose a best book this month, we have this here. Next we have Buzzwordathon, and the prompt for this month was something with measurement in the title, and for that one I read Run to Overcome. The subtitle is The Inspiring Story of an American Champion's Long Distance Quest to Achieve a Big Dream. So I used the subtitle for the measurement terms. If the angle of the camera shifted a little bit, I had to replace the battery. Next we have my 24 in 24, and for that I read Separated Inside an American Tragedy and Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. We also have my nonfiction reads, trying to read at least 2 per month. I read 4 of those this month. We have Run to Overcome. We have Separated. Both of those were for other goals. And then we also had Fallout by Leslie M.M. Bloom, which my mom also just read. And then we have We Were Dreamers by Simu Liu. So I have a fairly good mix of types of nonfiction as well. We also have Clearing series off of my TBR that I started prior to BookTube. And in that case, I finished one by finally finishing off the Sisters Grimm series. This is book 9. And I also made progress in the Truly Devious series by reading The Hand on the Wall. I was helped by the fact that I'd actually already read book 2 and didn't realize that until I started reading the book. So technically, this finishes the original Truly Devious trilogy. However, there are at least 2 more books in that world, and I'm a completionist, so I'm going to count those as well. I also have my Our Fantasy bingo list that I've just recently started. I did not print those out, but I do know that on that list there was Feybound. This was the prompt for fantasy romance, and Son of Blood and Ruin, and I forget what prompt this was for. I've made significant progress on that. I just don't know how much. And there may be other books on this list that I had in there. I think I included 5th season on that as well. I think so, but I don't remember for sure. Then we have the secondary series goal of making progress in series. And for that, we have the 6th book in the Percy Jackson and the Olympians series. I am caught up with this series, with what has been published thus far, and I plan to try to stay caught up with that. We have book 3 in the Up and Under series, which is tied to Middle Game. We have book 2 in the Skandar series. I'm a little bit behind this one because book 3 has already been published, and I think book 4 is publishing this year. And then we also have book 2 in the Wind and Winged Flame trilogy. If I had to say another book that was a favorite this month, I almost forgot that I read that this month because I read this after or during like the second half of the month, and I read this to start off the month. These were both standing out amazing reads, so I'm so glad I'm continuing in series. Then we also had some series that I started. Yes, I do continue to do that. First off, we have Red Rising. Now, I'm including this right now, but I don't know if I'm going to continue in the series. Not because this was bad. I enjoyed this. I just haven't decided whether or not this is the series for me. But 2 that I'm definitely going to continue that I started, we have Thursday Murder Club. This was so much fun. I cannot wait to get into the other books in this series because I've heard that they only go up from here. And then we also have Team Chew and the Battle for Blackwood Arena. I just realized there were 2 other series that I started that I set off to the side, and that was my bad. Technically, both of these start a series, but I'm not going to be continuing in this series. So these are one and done for me. As far as ones that I'm probably going to continue, well, most definitely going to continue, we have, this is The Cradle by Tasha Suri. This is the Decades collection, so you can read them in any order. This was the first that I read from that. There are 6 total. And then we also have Skin of the Sea by Natasha Bowen. This was an unexpected hit. Then we have my quest to bring down my Book of the Month collection to a more reasonable number, and I have read 4 of those. I'm actually probably going to keep all of them. Even though one of them was not necessarily a hit for me, it's just because I've read so much of Greek mythology. This is Circe by Madeline Miller, well known. It was good, but I'm just done with Greek myth retellings. We also have Middletide, which was a stretch for genre categorization for myself. We also have Piranesi, talk about weird. And we also have The Water Dancer, which was another hit this month. I won't go through the last stack of books that I have because they don't really have a category. The next thing and the last thing that I'll do for this wrap up is go through my genre breakdown. And I think there's only 2 books that I'm not rating because I think there were just 2 memoirs. My overall rating was a 4.1, which is pretty good. I've been thinking about why my ratings have not really gotten below 3 stars, and there really aren't that many. And when I'm thinking about CAWPILE and I'm rating all these different pieces, my enjoyment can be pretty low and it's not a book for me. But unless the book does something seriously wrong with characterization or plot or a bunch of these different things, it's really hard for me to end up rating a book on Cawpile that's really low, significantly low, and low enough to get a 2.5, a 2-star. I take that as a win, especially for the fact that if it's really bad, I'm gonna DNF it. I'm much better at that. So far, there haven't been that many of them this year for me. There was a tie for me this month between 4 and 4.5. I love that. And I had a really high, much higher number of 5 stars, as you'll see in just a moment. All right, so without further ado, here are all the books broken down by rating. We have the 2 that I am not rating because they are memoirs. We have Run to Overcome and We Were Dreamers. Then we have my lowest rated books. I have an ARC that I read, The Last Blood Carver, and also Son of Blood and Ruin. Next we have my 3.5 star reads. We have Feybound, The Chosen One, J.R. Silver Writes Her World, and Circe. That means that these 5 from Son of Blood and Ruin up are getting unhauled. When you read 31 books in a month though, not too shabby of a percentage that didn't end up working. Next we have my 4-star reads. For those we have Red Rising, Empire of Wild, Every Heart a Doorway, The Star That Always Stays, Into the Wind-Wracked Wilds, Middle Tide, The Hand on the Wall, Piranesi, The Council of Mirrors. Next we have my 4.5 star reads. For those we have The Chalice of the Gods, When You Trap a Tiger, Separated Inside an American Tragedy, The Thursday Murder Club, Team Chu in the Battle for Blackwood Arena, The Cradle, Skandar and the Phantom Rider, Skin of the Sea, and Fallout. Lastly, we have my 5-star reads. I have 4 of them, and all 4 of them, at least 2 of them though, might make it their way onto my top 10 of the year. All of them might, if I split them out by genre. These were just some absolutely incredible reads. We started the month off with The Bitter Twins, the behemoth of a book. Then we had Anxious People by Fredrik Backman. That's 2 months in a row with a Fredrik Backman 5-star read. We also had The Water Dancer, which is magical realism and just amazing. And we finished it off with The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. So there you go. There are all 31 of the books that I read in the month of July. I say getting 5 incredible 5-star reads was a really great birthday month present for myself. I can't wait to see what August has in store. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one.